Hello there, Nathan from Ravetank here, and I'm doing something a little bit different today, just running through the pedalboard that I use for live shows. So yeah, we'll get to it. First up, I have this volume pedal. It's a Boss FV500H. This is actually my second one, because my old one, I used it so much that it's just not really working anymore. I think a lot of it's probably just the jacks are a bit loose, so maybe that just needs a tighten up, maybe just see what it's all like inside. But I figured it was pretty handy to just get a second one anyway, because even though these guys are built like tanks, you never know how long they're gonna last. And also another thing is, my guitar, as you'll see in a moment, doesn't have a volume pedal, so a volume knob, sorry, so I kind of need this to roll off and get some more mellow sounds, boost the volume, stuff like that. Okay, now on to the main board itself. Boss TU3. I slapped some stickers on my pedals because, you know, I kind of got into this weird thing of trying to obscure what my pedals were, because even though I am a bit of a technical gear nerd, it's not the most important thing to me. Like, what's important is what you do with what you got. But anyway, I just gave it the Glow Part 2, the microphones, one of my favourite albums of all time. It's a tuner, Boss TU3. Yeah, not really anything to say. It's still rock solid. That's been at pretty much every show I've played, even going way back to when I was in a band in college. You know, that's basically been on every pedal board I've had, and it's still kicking. Still kicking. Up next, we got this Locobox chorus. Locobox are some weird obscure company from the 70s and 80s. Their 70s pedals are actually quite rare and expensive, but these are kind of from the 80s, and they were relatively affordable, or at least this one was when I first got it. I can't remember how much it was, but it's not spendy what it was. Repping the local band Television Villain on this one. This one's actually been on and off a couple of boards for Ravetank over the years. I think I've used this sort of back in like 2016, 2017. So that's how long that's been on the board. It's kind of like a classic Boss CE2 kind of thing. It's a little beat up. It wasn't like that when I got it, trust me. I just was going to a gig and I accidentally whacked my pedalboard into a door, and that's kind of pushed that through. But the potentiometer still works, so, you know, I can't complain too much about that. And, you know, these pedals are so rare and obscure that people probably aren't going to be buying them up that quick anyway, unless they happen to know what kind of chorus this is trying to be. It sounds really good. A little bit noisy, but that doesn't really matter for this kind of band, because we just play at the sort of maximalist, everything on full whack all the time, except for like very rare occasions. Up next, got the Mosky Golden Horse. This is a clone, a very cheap one actually. I think I only paid about £20 for this. This was originally my relatively clean boost for my guitar, because it's very low output. We'll get on to the guitar in a minute. It's a very special guitar actually, but this was originally going to be a clean boost, and now I use it as like my main drive, clean tone sort of thing. Got like a fair amount of mid-range to it. I think that's just because I got the treble down slightly, so it kind of mellows out. It's kind of very boxy and mid-rangey the way I've got it set, but that kind of cuts through nicely in a live situation. We actually record basically every show we do. We tape it on a Zoom H4n, and then we like listen back to it and stuff. Sometimes we release them. We've got a whole archive of live recordings, and I find that this kind of just helps my guitar sit nicely in a mix. But originally this was supposed to be a clean boost into this next pedal, which is a DoD 250 clone from Kaiser Electricals. This pedal was actually like pretty good, but came with these weird like witch hat knobs, which were like hilariously big, and they were just like rub against each other, so it was basically impossible to turn one potentiometer without turning the other essentially. So I wasn't a fan of that, but it was a nice sounding pedal until it got destroyed in the same incident that caused this, because these knobs just kept falling off, and I just got fed up of that, so I just didn't bother keeping them on. So I imagine what's happened is, you know, the impact has just knocked these and it just doesn't work, but it's true bypass, so it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, that doesn't get used anymore. It you do hear it a little bit on Echoes from Feedback Mountain and the second half of the Delightfully Devilish Duo Tour LP, but not a great amount these days. It's just kind of here because I can't be bothered to take it off the board at the moment. Up next, oh yeah, we got the Boss Metal Zone. I don't think we need to introduce this one too much. We all know what this is. We've all seen the memes and stuff. I've kind of got this one set up with a relatively low amount of distortion. The level's kind of just wonky. It kind of goes wherever it feels like a lot of the time. I boost some of the low end a little bit, and I boost quite a bit of the mids as well, actually. Kind of like trying to zone in around 800 hertz. I used to try and dial in a sort of HM2 style sound. I just crank the bass and crank the level and try to get the mids sitting roughly about where it should be, but that just wasn't really doing it for me in the end. So I kind of just went for a more of a kind of like dark throne kind of tone, like Under a Funeral Moon is kind of the reference point I was going for, which is a bit odd for the kind of band we are, but fundamentally I don't think that guitar tone is that much different from, say, Super Fuzz Big Muff by Mudhoney. You know, they're pretty in the same ballpark of having this like raw, mid-range, garagey kind of sound, which cuts through in a mix really nicely. Where it's set now, it's, you know, it's just perfect for a lot of the live recordings we're getting. Before, it was like I was hitting the switch and it's like you feel it. You feel that something's happened, but it doesn't translate well onto a recording. Up next, this is a special pedal as well. Holy Island Audio plus Devi Ever Camry Rorscach Tonal Manipulator. So what this is, it's a synth filter. You can set your resonance, high and low for the resonance. It's a dual output, so one output would be like the low pass and the other output would be the high pass, and theoretically you can send this to like a bi-amp setup and do like weird filter sweeps where you're going between the two, and you can set it to notch pass and band pass as well to do a similar thing. It's also got like a very obscure Devi Ever circuit in here. I can't remember what it is. It's called like the Test Patterns or something. I don't know. I'll put a little thing in there, but it's a collaboration between two Welsh pedal makers, so relatively local to me actually. Holy Island does like a lot of amazing stuff, and Devi Ever Camry is like, it's Life is Unfair Audio, who do like a lot of pedals, but they got the Devi Ever license for a little bit and just did like pre-builds. They done like some really nice ones, a couple of which I have, the Truly Beautiful Disaster and the Shoegazer. Their version of the Shoegazer is perhaps the definitive one, because you can do a lot of stuff like switching the order of the fuzzes. You can have both fuzzes independently, whereas the original Shoegazer, it was like you could have the sodomizer and then you can have the sodomizer and the torn speaker, but you couldn't have just the torn speaker on its own, or something like that. I can't quite remember exactly. Fuzz doesn't really get used for Ravetank at the moment. It's kind of just like a very wild thing, but maybe at some point it'll get used. It's mostly just used for its synth filter. It's got like a little joystick, adjusts the cutoff for the filter, also adjusts the voltage for the fuzz, and it's a neat pedal that does just nothing like anything else I've ever heard. I also use this as like in a no input setup for echoes from Feedback Mountain, like a lot of the spacey Hawkwind synth sweepy stuff is done with this, looping back into my next pedal, the Dr. J Shadow Echo, Behringer Ultra Flanger, and Dwarfcrafted Devices Great Destroyer. But anyway, onto this guy. This is a delay, pretty cheap and cheerful one. I quite like this. It sounds relatively analog. Don't know if it is or not. I assume it is because the current draw is really low for it from what I can see online. And that's the reason why it's on this board, because I used to use Line 6 Echo Park, which is an amazing pedal. It's literally just the DL4 in a compact case with some of the elaborate bells and whistles taken away, but enough where it's just like good for performing. But I was having power problems at a gig and it wouldn't power on, so I took this as a backup, stuck on the board when inevitably the Echo Park stopped working again, and it's been on here ever since. The Echo Park works perfectly fine. It's just the way I'm powering my pedals, it's not particularly reliable with some venues we go to. This is like a nice delay. It's just good for like real psychedelic solos, especially when you pair it up with the Rorscach. You get like a lot of that Hawkwind kind of stuff just straight off the bat, but with guitar instead of synth. So that's great. Next is this big beast, the TC Electronic Ditto x4. Hello! So, nothing really to say here. It's a looper. I use this for a lot of like feedback in between songs, because originally all of our songs were just super short, and I didn't want to do the thing of like, you know, where you go to like a hardcore show or like a grindcore show and guys are playing songs that last like a minute and then they stop and they talk for like 2 minutes. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that for Ravetank. I want bam 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 songs one after another as much possible. So I just done like loads of layered feedback kind of looping with this, but I kind of set it up in a way that, because you got this decay knob, and what this does is it just slowly fades old loops out as you're doing new ones, and that's kind of cool because you can do this kind of Frippatronics type thing, but super controllable. And I also have the fade function. Most of the time I just do like a stop on there, hard cut for songs, but sometimes I use the fade function. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what songs that fade function is used for. Oh, going into the lack of dancing at Joanna Gruesome shows makes me sad. That's where the fade function gets used. And going into Lois's Magic Sweater, that's where the fade gets used. And also going into Burrito Babe as well, that's also where the fade gets used. I love this pedal, but it's massive. And one of the things I've been trying to do for ages is to find another looper that does all the functions that I want. You know, like the Frippatronics type thing, having like a fade function. And every looper I find, it normally has either one option or the other, but not both. And none have like a dedicated like stop switch where it's just like you hit the switch once and it turns the loop off. It's always some weird like double tap. And you know, maybe I could get used to the double tap, but I don't really want to rely on that. I just want to be like bam and that's off. So yeah, I'm just trying to think of a solution for that. I think I've come across one. So I have a couple of these like Digitech PDS pedals, like the 2000, the Echo Plus. They have like an infinite hold switch, so basically it's a normal delay most of the time, but you hit the infinite hold and then it will just loop whatever's in the delay buffer indefinitely. And I'm thinking that's exactly what I need for this setup. really. I need that infinite hold to do my perfect Frippatronics type thing. But the thing is, I don't want to have the Digitech PDS, any of them on my board, because now they are super rare and quite expensive. And also the elephant in the room is the old foot switches on those things are just not the most reliable. I'll see if I can... Hold on a sec. I'll see if I can find one of the guys. So yeah, I got the multiplayer as well. But yeah, these old Digitech foot switches, there's not a lot given them, so it's fine for home, but in the heat of the moment at a gig, it kind of feels like you're not getting much response from that. And also these foot switches wear out really easy and aren't super reliable anyway, which is a shame because I quite like them. But I have found that Maneko Labs, I believe it is, they do a clone of the EH Electro-Harmonix 16-second delay, which is like an old quasi-obscure pedal from the 80s. Nels Klein uses one to such great effect. So I've put in an order for one of those at the time of this recording. So that big guy's probably going to go. And the idea is to get something like... I actually have like a Boss DD6, so I'm probably going to do something with like a stutter effect using the hold function. Have that going into the 16 seconds, and then going into like some other delay that's set for like a longish sort of thing with a fair amount of repeats, so I can replicate that sort of fade function. I think that would be like a more interesting way of doing it. It's a bit more modular, a bit more free as well, because I want to bring a bit more like improvised stuff with the loops. And it's a little bit rigid, something like this. So having something where I can be like doing some like weird glitchy stutter effect, having like a Frippatronics thing that I can then like do an infinite hold on, and then going into some sort of like delay, so I can just have some sort of like way to fake the fade out function, and probably do the fade out function much better than this, because this kind of just goes quiet, 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 and then all of a sudden just suddenly cuts off, which is a bit jarring and a bit annoying. And then last but not least, this is a Boss LM2 limiter. This limiter is actually pretty sick. I quite like it. It's quite transparent, just really cuts the loudness down. It doesn't actually get used much, if ever. This is more of like a kill switch kind of thing, or like a fail switch. So like, say I somehow get my guitar feeding back like some crazy amount, and you know the amp just can't handle it. It's too loud for everyone. The idea was to have like this as just like a safety switch, so I can just be like, okay, we'll bring that back down to a sensible level. But I've gotten so good at controlling all of these pedals and getting the kind of results I want from the pedals that this is not really an issue for me anymore. So this guy's going to go. He's probably going to get replaced with a delay. And then all of these guys go into this Michael Rucci 4-way box splitter thing. It just takes like a regular like 9-volt power supply at the top round here on switch. So effectively everything here is daisy chained on like a one spot, which is not the most ideal way of powering everything. It's amazing it actually works at all, and that's actually why I took the Echo Park I was mentioning earlier off my board, because some of the venues just weren't giving enough juice to the power supply to actually power everything as it should be. So, you know, the idea is, the reason why I'm also trying to get rid of this and going with like the 16-second Maneko delay and all of that stuff, is because effectively, even with like a delay, the 16 seconds, and then like another delay at the end, that could all effectively get moved back there. And the idea as well is to like rejig this bottom bit as well, like get rid of that 250 clone, shift everything up as much as possible, because then I can probably fit in like something like an MXR carbon copy like at the end next to this Rorscach. So then like not having to go all the way up here for my delay and then all the way back down here, just going up here for like my looping stuff. So having like my main riffing rig, so to speak, the part of the pedalboard that makes all the sick riffs, just down here. And swapping some of these out as well, you know, for different overdrives. And well, the metal zone's always going to stay because that's just too good. That's just too good of a pedal to get rid of. And then even with like my weird 3 setup, or even like a 2 setup, it's still going to take up less space. And then hopefully getting in like an isolated power brick, like a Fender level 8 or something, just in there. Maybe even get rid of the chorus, because sometimes the chorus doesn't quite play nicely with the metal zone. It's kind of weird. Like with chords, I think because the mid boost is like so pronounced, you hear like the oscillation of the stereo chorus a bit more as it's going into that, and it kind of there's something about it I just don't like from some recordings. And also, like, even though I kind of like the mid-range boxiness of the Mosky, I want something a bit more like a jangle, but that's just going to be a job for a different time. Okay, now with the pedalboard out of the way, we'll go on to the guitar that requires this thing to roll my volume off, requires that for a boost, and it's this guy. This is a Gretsch Jim Dandy, nicknamed Dada. I've had this one for quite a while now. It's got a Bill Lawrence A300 pickup installed in it. This is the only pickup that can fit in this sound hole because it's a parlor guitar. And coincidentally, Elliott Smith also uses the same pickup, so I can say that I am one step closer to being Elliott Smith, even though I only have a fraction of his talent, if that. Covered in lots of weird stickers. You gotta have your weird anime stickers, and Daniel Johnston right there. Hi, how are you? So now you might be thinking, why are you running an acoustic guitar through a metal zone? And the answer to that is quite simple. Ravetank in its current incarnation started out as a 2-piece with Jack and I. Then it was like Rick and I. And I kind of wanted to have a sort of, how do you say this? I wanted lots of feedback, like lots of real noisy segments. But because with a 2-piece, guitar and drums, you don't want too much distortion on your guitar itself, because you want some kind of note clarity and definition. You want like a certain clearness to the sound, which if I was using, say, like my Fender Mustang or like my Fender Jaguar, I'd probably have to whack the gain up way more on my pedals to get even the same kind of results. So this allows me to have all my wild feedback at a relatively low volume on stage as well, which is always a good thing. Not much to say about this guitar. It's a Gretsch Jim Dandy that I bought from a guy I knew in Bath. I did a photo shoot for his band actually, so he gave me mates rates. He was originally charging 100 for this. I bought it for like 90. I have a Fender parlor guitar as well, but it's kind of a slightly bigger body, more traditional sound. I wanted to get like a real kind of like proper parlor guitar, just because they have like a certain boxy tone, which kind of interested me as a player at that time. And also I wanted something relatively cheap so I can just take it out on tour and stuff and not worry about it getting smashed or something. But now is sort of sentimental to me. I don't really want to be taking him out to the road that much longer. Like, he served me well for sort of like the 2-piece era. Ravetank is now a 3-piece as of last June or July, whenever we played with Weather Day. I'll put the date in there. And actually we have that show recorded as well, which is coming out at some point, so that's going to be pretty dope. It served its purpose in the 2-piece lineup where I needed like a clearer guitar tone while still being kind of noisy. But now that we're a 3-piece, I kind of need something that I feel suits the vibe better. Like this, you still get like a real nice rocking sound. It's just kind of like, but because it occupies just almost entirely mid-range, you don't really get to hear like much of the gnarliness. Like this guy kind of puts out a lot of dirt, but you don't really hear it on any of the recordings we do, as like the live ones at least, because the little high end that's there just kind of gets rolled off by like the cymbals and stuff like that. So this guy will, when this pedal board is redone, I'm planning on retiring the guitar and going over to my Fender Jaguar again, Jaggy, who has been sort of like a staple of mine for like a good couple of years. Then I got the Mustang, then the Mustang kind of replaced Jaggy, and Jaggy kind of went into Nashville tuning. It was kind of like my jangly guitar, trying to imitate like that Rickenbacker 12-string sound, but you know, I don't want to get a 12-string. I've tried playing them, they're kind of not my thing, but Nashville tuning is. So Jaggy's kind of gonna get some regular strings at some point, get all of that goodness, and then we'll redo this pedal board. But we'll move on to like the demonstration. Normally what I do is I'd probably just like set up the camera, play through an amp, and you'll hear how it sounds in the room. But we're not going to do that because I don't have an amp in the house that really does this pedal board justice and like the guitar justice, because I typically gigged with a Marshall MA50C, and because I was whacking up the volume so much, I think I just fried the speaker in it, because my whole thing was just like getting that power amp sag. It was kind of gnarly, it kind of sounded like Rambler, I guess, especially with the metal zone just whacked on, but it's not really something I can do. But we'll do something a little bit different. In a moment we're going to play a segment of our show in Le Pub in Newport. We'll play like the live footage from this, recorded with this very camcorder. It's a little bit crunchy and a little bit distorted, but that'll give you like a general vibe. And then after that, we also have the multi-tracks from that show, so we'll go through the same song again with the multi-track recording, and then we'll also isolate the guitar tone at certain points, or like do like a playthrough of the song and then like do a playthrough of like the isolated guitar track, so you can kind of hear what this thing does within and without a gigging context. And so that kind of will conclude my showcase of this rig. It's a nice little rig, I will say that much. I try to strike a balance between, you know, relatively like affordable pedals that are also like pretty good quality, and you know, not relying too much on boutique stuff. Like, main reason I got the Metal Zone is just because it's very utilitarian. It's not got my favourite distortion sound on it in the world, but these things are cheap, they're built like a tank, and the EQ is surprisingly powerful. Like, the EQ is literally the only reason really why it's on the board, apart from the cheapness, because I know that if something like that breaks, or heaven forbid my rig gets stolen someday when I'm out on the road, which is always a perpetual fear of mine. You know, you hear horror stories all the time of like vans being broken in and stuff being stolen. It's just an ugly way the world works now, unfortunately. But I know for a fact that, heaven forbid anything like that ever happens to us, I can always replace the metal zone. The Rorscach, that's kind of irreplaceable. You know, they don't make those anymore, and they don't really pop up on the internet that much. And, you know, but I mean, the only reason this guy's on the board is because there's literally no other pedal in my collection that does it. And maybe when Jaggy comes back, the fuzz side of it will get used more for like wild solos and stuff. Sorry, this is kind of like very loose and very rambly, but I don't really do a script, and then sometimes it's very difficult to come up with things to say. Even if I have a rough idea of what I'm going to say in my mind, sometimes it's just very tough to like actually do that on the camera. But anyway, that's the rig. We'll get to the video demonstration, and then we'll get to the audio demonstrations, and see you next time. Probably next time I do a rig rundown like this, at least for like the band side of Ravetank, it will be when Jaggy is up and running and I've rejigged all of these pedals, so there'll be some big changes. Anyway, take it easy.
I have left my other bar